We wanted to provide a brief update on where we've been the last few years with the Deepwater Horizon funding and also where we're going in the future. This first slide is a slide that shows all of the funding sources related to the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And as you can see, it's very convoluted, but there are really only about 5 of these sources of funding that the county and the city have tapped into. At the top left, you'll see NRDA, the Natural Resource Damage Assessment Funds, and some of the projects that we have already allocated funds from NRDA. One is the expansion of Project Green Shores downtown along Bayfront Parkway. That is a project that NOAA and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection are working on. Another NRDA project that's been funded and completed is the Mahogany Mill Boat Ramp over on Bayou Chico. And another one is the Carpenter Creek Headwaters project that is just now beginning and is underway. Over toward the top right corner, you'll see the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, the NIFWF funds. The city has received funds for the Corinne Jones Government Street Stormwater Pond, and that project's been completed. The Bill Gregory Park Stormwater Pond has also been completed with NIFWF funds. And the Jones Creek and Jackson Creek Stream Restoration projects in the Bayou Chico watershed are 2 projects that Escambia County is working on currently. And then the blue boxes, the 5 blue boxes across the middle, those are the 5 pots of money associated with the Restore Act. And going left to right, the Pot 1 funds are the direct component funds, and those are the funds that come directly to Escambia County, and those are the funds that Matt Posner will talk about later on this morning, and some of the projects that have already been completed, as well as some of the projects that have just been approved by the Board of County Commissioners. The second funding source associated with Restore is the Gulf Coast Ecosystem Restoration Council funding, and that is funding that is associated with 6 federal agencies that are a new government board, the Gulf Coast Ecosystem Restoration Council, and they vote on and decide which competitively funded projects will be awarded. Some of the projects that Escambia County and the City of Pensacola have received funding from those Pot 2 funds. One is the $2 million that is standing up the new estuary program, the Perdido and Pensacola Bays Estuary Program. 2 other projects, the NAS Pensacola Living Shoreline Project that's under design, and the Beach Haven Septic to Sewer and Stormwater Project that is just wrapping up construction now. The Pot 3 funds are the state consortium of 23 counties. This is the group that Mayor Grover Robinson used to be the chair of. And each of the 23 counties receives an equal allotment of about $12 million from those funds. And the decision was made that those funds will go towards the Bayou Chico Contaminated Sediment Remediation Project. So that is under design right now also. And then far to the right, the Centers of Excellence, the Pot 5 funds. In the Pensacola News Journal this morning, there was an article about a project that was awarded to the University of West Florida and the University of Florida to look at some of the estuaries here in Northwest Florida and look at the stressors that include water quality, sediment quality, and submerged aquatic vegetation or seagrasses. So that project is just beginning also. So you can see the red circle there. These are the direct component funds, the Pot 1 funds. And now I'll turn it over to Matt Posner, and he'll go through some of the projects that have already been funded, that are already in the works from the first round of projects, and then also the second round of projects that was just recently approved by the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, Chips. Good morning. Before we leave this slide, I do want to mention a bit of good news that the city and county experienced a couple weeks ago. We were fortunate enough to have EPA Deputy Administrator Doug Benevento, DEP Secretary Noah Valenstein, as well as officials from the Restore Council to tour some of the city projects and some of the county projects that we currently have underway and planned. And they were all very excited to see the collaboration between the city and the county and leveraging these various pots of Deepwater Horizon funding sources. So that's a bit of a good news story that I wanted to share with the council and commission. I'm not going to read this slide verbatim, but there are 11 eligible activities for Restore Direct Component or Pot 1 funds. You can think about this in three big pots. One is environmental restoration, two is for infrastructure related projects, and three is to revitalize the coastal economy. The Escambia County Commission approved the initial multi-year implementation plan, which is required by the U.S. Department of Treasury. U.S. Department of Treasury administers the Restore Direct Component funds before they're released to the eligible counties, so Escambia County in this case. The Commission approved the initial plan back in 2017, which included 10 projects. Those projects are listed here. They include everything from the Restore Workforce Development Project, the Purdue Key Multi-Use Path, and Carpenter Creek and Baitahar Watershed Management Plan, just to name a few. That totals about $8.6 million out of the $70 million in Restore Pot 1 funding that Escambia County has coming over the 30-year payout period. I do want to highlight two joint city-county projects that we're excited about. The first is the Carpenter Creek and Baitahar Master Plan. The intent of this project is to develop a roadmap for improving water quality, fish and wildlife habitat, enhancing public access and recreation, and enhancing community resilience in both the creek and the bayou. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the great work that Councilman Myers has done in Carpenter's Creek over the last 2 years. I think staff has attended almost every one of those town halls, and the intent of this project is to build on that great work that Councilman Myers and Emerald Coastkeeper have done, again, over the last 2 years. Earlier this year, the county selected the project team, which includes Wood Environment and Infrastructure, SCAPE, Wetland Sciences and Impact Campaigns. Over the last two months, the team has been very active with county staff and city staff to compile existing data, inventory that data, and characterize the watershed. Earlier this week, we finalized the date for the first public kickoff meeting, which will be Wednesday, January 22nd, probably about 6 o'clock. So be on the lookout over the next 2 weeks for a press release on that coming out of both the city and the county. This plan will very much engage the public throughout the process. We want to know how the public utilizes these resources, what they'd like to see this this watershed be for the future. How is it going to be a sustainable watershed? So that's why we're going to have their involvement throughout the project. The next project that's a joint city-county effort is the Hollis T. Williams Stormwater Project. Again, very excited about this dual-use park to enhance community resilience. This solicitation should be advertised next week, and that selection committee is made up of both city and county staff. While it's very much early on in the process, we are already shopping this project around to our federal and state partners. DEP has a very high interest in seeing this funded through resilience opportunities. They see this as a great opportunity to expand their resilience in Northwest Florida and really mirror the Cascades Park that you might be familiar with over in Tallahassee. This next slide includes the projects approved by the Board of County Commissioners a couple weeks ago, and there are 8 new projects and 3 revisions to the projects were included in the initial Restore round. That totals around $12.1 million. And some of those projects include revising the SOAR the Restore workforce development program to be more flexible and allow for construction trade training opportunities. And again, this is another joint city-county effort that will benefit citizens of both the city and the county. The Paducah multi-use path, additional funding will be allocated to this project to complete the entire east segment of the path, so from the Paducah State Park over to Theo Bars Bridge. Additional funding is also set aside for additional ponds in the 11 Mile Creek Basin. So we've set aside $500,000 for land acquisition and $500,000 for design and permitting of additional ponds in 11 Mile Creek Basin. Another city project we're excited about is Pensacola International Airport MRO campus expansion. I didn't mention before, but the OLF 8 master plan was one of 10 of the initial projects included in the MYIP. Navy Federal Credit Union was very gracious to cover the cost of developing that plan. And earlier this year, Commissioner Bergosh moved that funding with board support to the Pensacola International Airport MRO campus. So that is part of the county's $15 million contribution that's expected in 2023-2024. The next project over in Commission District 1 is developing a Beulah master plan. We all are aware of the expanded growth taking place out there with Navy Federal and many new subdivisions coming online. So this is another project we're excited about and working with the Northwest District 1 Advisory Committee on. Moving to Commission District 3, this is something I'm personally excited about, is the Brownsville Community Center renovation and retail incubator space. Earlier this year at a Civicon presentation, Charleston, South Carolina Mayor Joe Riley presented at a Civicon and mentioned an incubator retail project that Charleston had undertaken while he was mayor. And so we brought this up with Commissioner May and are looking to develop a retail incubator space to generate redevelopment activity in the Brownsville community redevelopment area. Another project with the Escambia County Community Redevelopment Agency is designing a new community center in either the Brownsville or Palafox CRA, so we're excited about that. And another CRA project is developing a complete streets concept in a yet-to-be-identified CRA in Escambia County. This will be a great community resilience project which will involve walkability, bikeability, stormwater improvements through green infrastructure solutions. Over in District 4, out on Pensacola Beach, is the Little Sabine Bay Restoration Program, which will involve a suite of water quality improvement projects and habitat restoration projects to improve submerged aquatic vegetation or seagrass habitat in Little Sabine Bay. And then finally, up in District 5, the Town of Century Wastewater Improvement Plant project includes design funding for that, and it's a partnership with Town of Century to make sure those improvements are made to address the DEP standards. So the next steps for approving MYIP Amendment 1 includes conducting the 45-day public comment period, which should begin next Monday. We will have a public meeting as part of that. That date has not been released, but we will keep you apprised of when that's set. Through that 45-day public comment period, staff will gather those comments, review them, incorporate them into the MYIP Amendment 1, take that back to the Escambia County Commission for approval, and then submit that to the U.S. Department of Treasury for the department's approval. After that, the county staff will submit the individual project applications to Treasury for approval, and we will then implement those projects over the coming year. Just for a Restore outlook, as Chip's mentioned, there's $70 million coming down to Escambia County through 2031 through this process, with Pot 1, Cycle 1, and Pot 1, Cycle 2 projects. Around $20 million has been encumbered, so there's still $50 million available through Restore Pot 1 over the total payout period. $4 million is deposited in the trust fund each April through 2031.